Hi there. I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goathe of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever strikes my fancy, sets my mind on fire at the time. Big UPG warning at the beginning of the episode, like always. I am not some all-knowing heathen Pope. I am not... oh, by the way, I did not come up with the term Pope. I know everybody's geeking out on it. That term's been around for a long time. I have no idea who came up with it to begin with. It's made the rounds. It's a meme at this point, but that we tend to refer to anyone who gets kind of cult leadery status on the larger, like the head of a larger national org type situation might be referred to as Asa Pope in that kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of way. Because they think that they're all big, bad, and in charge, and ultimately have no relevance whatsoever to the rest of heathenry. So, that's... sorry. My anti-national org thing is showing there a little bit. Sorry. But nonetheless, I didn't come up with Asa Pope. That's already been around for a while, but I know people have been geeking out about it, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of backstory on it there. That's a pre-existing thing. So... But, like I said, this is just how I see heathenry. This is how I see the world. The views of one Goathe here in East Texas. My views don't even necessarily reflect that of my entire tribe. Everybody has different views, and you're going to find as many different views of heathenry as there are heathens in the world. So, just keep that in mind as we go forward. These conversations are meant to be conversation starters, and to just kind of get your mind going on some things, and honestly, to be a little of an outlet for me to just kind of ramble for a bit, because that's what I like to do. I enjoy it. It's fun. Mosquitoes. Yay. So, all my contact information's down below. You guys know the deal. I'm about 8 deep on emails at the moment. I swear I'm going to get back to them. Getting through this shutdown process at my work. We're almost there. You can see the blooper reel for the cutting room floor for... more me kind of stumbling through it. But needless to say, there's a lot going on there. We're not done yet, but we should be done this week as far as my part of it goes. And then, yeah, so I'm tired. I'm very, very tired. And the sun is shining in my face because it was cloudy when I came out here and set up my spot. But that was a while ago, and I've been fighting with mosquitoes. A swarm of mosquitoes. Anyway, so, yes. I will get back to the emails, but my email address is down there below. It is an excellent way to get questions over to me that might turn into episodes. Because if I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is something that everybody will benefit from, I'll throw it on my episode list and go from there. And then your reply may come in the form of a video at that point, and I'll try to give shout outs where I can. But anyway, all that's down below. You'll find the link to my book down below, the Saga of Bjorn Thorolfson. Everybody seems to enjoy it so far that's read it, except for one guy that gave me a 2-star review and didn't actually write a review, and I'm not entirely certain what that was about. So, anyway, everybody else gives it 5 stars. So, you know, make of that what you will, take it for what it is. But if you are interested in a heathen storybook that focuses on family and a little bit of supernatural, fantastic elements, all through a heathen kind of worldview lens, give it a shot. So, without any further ado, we're going to jump off into today's subject. Now, today's subject comes from a conversation I was actually having with a friend of mine, Dawn, she knows it, in an off-channel chat. That's, you know, my nearest and dearest and stuff. And she hit us up with a question last night that I found particularly interesting. And the question centered around, and I won't get into the details of the question because it gave birth to some ideas that I wanted to share, but I didn't necessarily want to share our conversation of the question in its entirety. But nonetheless, she was exploring the imagery and the theory behind the whole wolf, the wolves of Odin, and I don't mean that like an organization or anything like that, but I mean like those that over-identify with the imagery of wolf, and especially the ties of the wolf to Odin. And in general, kind of the misconceptions that may have come up with the imagery of wolf. And I thought, you know what, this actually would make a pretty good conversation point for the channel, because a lot of people do have a misconception when it comes to the imagery of wolf within heathen kind of iconography. Now, when you're dealing with, like, if you look at the sources, I go both ways when it comes to the subject matter of the wolf and its imagery and what it means and what influences it has, both positive and negative, like I would with anything. There's light and there's dark versions of this, elements that make up the whole. It's neither all one nor the other. It is a mixture of both, and it has to be in order for anything to exist. So when we're talking about the wolf in particular, a lot of times you'll see people say, I am a wolf of Odin. It's better to be a wolf of Odin than a sheep. And, of course, this makes a reference to the Judeo-Christian focus of the sheep imagery and the flock, etc., etc. Now, within their ideology, the Judeo-Christian kind of background of things, the view of deity as a shepherd and a protector of the innocent flock is, that imagery is very much set up around the idea of a warding, protecting individual. Whereas, the caricature of heathenry, as in the Viking religion, I say that specifically because this is heavily influenced by kind of the Brosatru side of things and the just general over-focus on the Viking element of heathenry as opposed to true Northern European heathenry. Mainland Europe heathenry, whatever you need, whatever area you're focusing on. This was all over. The gist here is that the wolf is seen as vicious. It is seen as hunting the sheep. It is seen as eating the sheep. Therefore, it is in dominance over the sheep. It is strong. It is mighty. It is warrior. It is therefore better because the sheep are prey and the wolf is the hunter. This is an oversimplification and a caricaturization of the wolf imagery and iconography, but okay. I get where they're coming at, and yes, there is an element of that. But where people, I feel, frequently go awry with the essence and the core of wolf imagery is that they focus heavily on the stalker, the hunter, the predatory nature of the wolf. You always see it in this kind of powerful stalking mode and the hunter's eyes and whatnot. But people don't think about what actually drives a situation like that. If we look at the lore specifically, and the way that the wolf was represented in the lore, meaning the sagas, the Eddas, those kind of things, when we look back to the imagery, which was largely written down during medieval times as opposed to actually contemporary heathen times, because heathenry existed in its predominance before the conversion, and the advent of written records was well after the conversion, as far as anything serious. So things that we have like the Eddas or the sagas or anything like that, Heimskringla, anything like that, are all written down well after the fact. Snorri Sturluson was not around in heathen times. He was recording stuff that happened that he had stories of, and he was recording those ages on. So it is not 100% clear that the imagery utilized for the wolf is reflective of arch-heathen views of the wolf, but it is spread around through enough sources that it is very likely that this was a contemporary heathen thought. And that is that the wolf is seen as an outlier. It is an outsider. When looking at society from a heathen standpoint, the inner is good and the outer is not so good, and then the far outer is unknown, it is dangerous, it is, those kind of things. The wolf represents, in that imagery, the danger in the woods, the stalker in the woods, that thing that is out there in the outer yard, in the deep outer yard, that is not welcome in the civilized inner yard. It is the hunger of chaos. It is the thing that goes bump in the night. So you see this in reference to outlaws. You see this in reference to just the imagery of the wolf and when it plays out. So when like it talks about being a sword age and a wolf age, we're speaking heavily of times of war. We're speaking heavily of distrust, predatory natures, things of this ilk. And so it is not necessarily a favorable thing to be tied to the wolf iconography in old arch-heathen times. I have seen references to it across. And the one thing that I keep finding that is the key element is the element of hunger, of ravenous, unending hunger. And we're going to come back to that throughout, because the hunger is an important part of this. It is why the wolf hunts, because it is ravenous, it is hungry, it is, it is in need. Think of the need fire of Maltese, the rune. This is that hungering need, almost like, I made a kind of throwaway quip about it last night, but it's kind of like a drug addict who is hungering and needing that next fix. That is a hunger that drives the wolf. And that is why it hunts. That's why it is vicious. That is why it is dangerous in those scenarios. And of course, as we all know, a more nuanced approach, more generalized understanding of the wolf. There's a complete total flip, positive side, family orientation, pack dynamics, respect. There is an ancient power to them. They are wise. They are cunning in a number of ways. I'm focusing on the caricature for a reason, because this is what is pervasive in modern culture at the moment. We need to bring those other elements in. But people also need to understand the true shadow of it. So the shadow wolf and the light wolf. And we're looking at the shadow wolf at the moment. All right. So with the shadow wolf, hunger is the key thing. Hunger is that viciousness. That is when it hunts. That is when the eyes get that way. That is when the lip snarls and it looks like it's going to take you down. It's either in defense of something in its inner yard, which is not your yard, or it is hungry and it needs to protect itself. So very much it needs to feed itself. Very much it is providing for and protecting the inner yard. And hunger is the need, nauthes. It is that need fire that is constantly burning. So the reason that I come to the need fire element is because if we look at the mythological sources, if we look to specifically like Hati and Skoll, the wolves that are chasing the moon and the sun across the sky until Ragnarok, when they will eventually devour them, which if you've seen my Ragnarok video, I view as heat death and the destruction of the celestial bodies as reality just kind of breaks down. Anyway, if you look at these individuals, they are hungering, they are gnawing, they are the hungering maw of chaos. An element we will come back to in just a moment. The hungering maw of chaos in this instance is trying to break down time itself. Hati and Skoll, their job is to break down time by devouring the sun and the moon, which the gods put into place in order to mark the passage of time. That is mentioned in the lore specifically. To mark the day and mark the night, they threw the sun and the moon up in the sky and set Sol, Orsona, and Mani to draw those celestial orbs across the sky in their chariots. So, this is what we see with these particular wolves. They seek to devour the markers of time, which is in essence one of the key building blocks of order. And as we all know, the Aesir are gods of order, which I will do a specific video on gods of order versus chaos here coming up soon, so that we can kind of understand where I'm coming from on that in more detail. It has dawned on me that I haven't done just a dedicated video to that and talk like people know what I'm talking about here. So I will come back to that, because the whole gods of order thing is extremely important to my worldview. And so we have these two wolves trying to devour time itself. And then you have, you've got Fenris. Fenris is the maw of chaos. It is the hungering jaws of doom, the embodiment of chaotic entropy that will break down the god of order himself. It goes after the king of order. This is in that Fenris devours Olden during Ragnarok. That is key to what we see here. The wolves in the mythology are agents of chaos, but they represent hunger and the devouring of entropy, much like Nidhogg down in the roots of Yggdrasil, whereas Nidhogg is a more gradual and pervasive, inertial kind of decay. The wolves are action. They are active and violent. The world was created in an act of violence, ergo it stands to reason that it shall be destroyed in an act of violence as well. When you look at like inertia, of course, it takes an act of violence, an application of applied force in order to move something from a sitting position, a still position, stagnant position, into a position of motion, because you have to convert potential energy into kinetic energy. You have to overcome the inertial drag, because inertia is going to, a body at rest tends to stay at rest unless an outside force acts upon it. So that's that outside force, that act of violence. And so that's what happened with the gods when Odin, Vili, and Ve created the worlds with the slaying of Ymir. And so it stands to reason that a similar act of violence would counter that process and begin to tear down that order. So that's what I see here, is this entropic hunger, but it's an active application of that hungering force. That is like the need fire. It is burning. It is active. It is not... there's the gradual decay of time, like with Nidhogg, which I see in things like mushrooms and whatnot, natural decay in the world, just breaking down. But with the wolves, it's like fire. It is burning, it is active, and it is violent. And, some would say, but then, of course, wolves are sacred to Odin. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. And there's a reason why wolves are sacred to Odin. I'm going to come back to that here in a second. But keeping on the whole hungering aspect, let's look at Odin's wolves real quick. Odin's wolves, which will segue into the next part, Odin's wolves, Geri and Freki, are basically his dogs, effectively, that sit at the side of his throne in Valhall. And he feeds them table scraps. That's what they eat off of, the leftovers. This is metaphorical. This is extremely metaphorical, because Odin's pick of the fallen warriors in battle, those are the mead and wine that he drinks. When he sits and drinks of the wine, he only drinks the best. He doesn't eat of the lesser things. And so he throws the table scraps down to the dogs. He takes the best and leaves the rest to the wolves. This is symbolic of the picking of the battlefield, when he chooses the best of the slain and takes them back to Valhall and leaves the remainder to be eaten by carrion eaters. Now, Odin's role as a psychopomp, the term psychopomp specifically refers to a spiritual entity or divinity whose role it is to guide the soul from the living world to the afterlife, to the, like the river Styx in Greek mythology. That's a psychopomp kind of situation. Any kind of situation where they travel from this world to the underworld and are kind of guides for that process or oversee that process. Odin, as gallows god, is very much a psychopomp. And carrion eaters are the physical manifestation of the psychopomp. If the psychopomp's role is to transition the soul from the living world to the afterlife, in this case it would be to Helheim or to Valhall, then it stands to reason that carrion eaters then begin the process of the body's return to the earth and its transition from what it was into what it will be, from where it is to where it will go. And this is the same role that the psychopomp does with the soul itself. So carrion eaters are in and of themselves psychopomps of the physical plane and the natural process. Animalistic because it ties to the Vetir, because the Vetir are the ones that will reincorporate those lost bodies, the Lich, into the world around us. And so The imagery of Raven has been used with the Valkyrie on numerous occasions. There are even some renditions that depict the Valkyrie as riding wolves. Both of these are carrion eaters, predominantly seen during war in Europe. Okay, especially during medieval Europe, definitely before as well. The idea here is that the wolf and the raven were probably the two most well-known carrion eaters that would roam the battlefield. So much so that kennings exist for killing, such as slaking the thirst of the wolf or feeding the ravens. And that is specifically about killing folk and leaving them on the battlefield so that the carrion eaters can eat. You will slake the thirst of the wolf means to provide enough blood that it can drink itself full. And of course, feeding the ravens, it's kind of obvious. So, because of this is where we've come full circle and all this, the carrion eaters are psychopomps after fashion. They are sacred to Odin, and they are predominantly in Europe at the time ravens and wolves. But because it's about the why and not just about the what that was written down in this one specific area and this one specific time, this makes me think, well, if wolves and ravens are sacred to Odin as carrion eaters, would not then the North American version of that include, but not be limited to, things like crows and especially vultures and coyotes? Because these are carrion eaters that, during a battlefield type thing, during, like, say, the American Revolution or Texas independence, any of these things, those would be the carrion eaters that you would see on the battlefield. In the southern U.S. to the western U.S., we have an image of being left out for the vultures. That is very much a thing. Being left to the vultures is the same thing as feeding the ravens in Europe in general. So you've got to think about the why and the base element on these things. So because of this, I would raise the supposition that vultures, crows, wolves, coyotes, ravens, all sacred to Odin. And that carrion eaters in general are sacred to Odin because of the role of Psychopomp and what's going on there. So there's that element of that. It's kind of an aside on the whole wolf thing, but coming full circle back to the wolf iconography, there's a strong over-identification with the caricature of wolf, and then they don't think about the fact that the wolf is predatory. The wolf is that need, that hunger that is the base of it. It is dependent upon its prey. The prey is fairly self-sufficient. The prey will walk about and eat and grow fat and die. It will do what prey does. And then the predator is wholly dependent upon the prey. If there's no prey, there's no predator. If there's no predator, there's plenty of prey. But if there's no prey, there's no predator. The predator is entirely dependent upon the prey to survive. And that's a thing that I don't think people get when they talk about sheep and wolves in relation to this kind of iconography and ideology. My other friend Brandon chipped in with this conversation and mentioned the fact that sheep and wolves are two different sides of hive mind type mentality, or pack mentality, herd mentality, things like that. Because they are. I mean, the wolf pack is very much a thing. There is a culture of the wolf pack and the way that it operates, but the way a sheep herd works is not necessarily all that dissimilar, because there tends to be pack dynamics in numerous creatures and numerous incarnations, numerous forms and shapes that all kind of come around full circle to the general basics. Even humans use the same kind of pack dynamics in our normal interactions. So, largely why I think we tie so heavily to the wild in a lot of ways. So, what I'm getting at here is that with all of that, he sees them kind of as two sides of a similar coin, and I completely agree on that. In this particular view, Now, of course, when you get into the more nuanced approach and actually understand wolves and understand the family pack dynamics, all that, they're not necessarily two sides of the same coin or even two different versions of pack dynamics, hive mind, whatever you want to approach it as. They're all part of the same thing, which is that generalized pack dynamic that exists as a hierarchy scale within numerous things in the Vatir and the wild. It's actually what I base my view of the hierarchy of Vatir in relation to the whole alpha and mid-level, low-level, all that. It's very much tied to the view of pack dynamics, how that works within a pack, and seeing that that's probably a physical manifestation of what the Vatir have always had, and this is just how it comes over into the physical world. So the wolf ideology here is way more nuanced and way more deep than just this singular view of the caricature, but that's kind of the focus of what we're getting on to do. So the negative aspects that we've seen through all of this, that people tend to lose the darker side of things when they're trying to go with the whole I'm a Viking, I'm a wolf of Odin, I'm a badass warrior. They're missing the point that they are saying they are completely and wholly dependent upon prey. They are saying they are ascribing to bully mentality that is absolutely necessary. They have to have a victim in order for their identity to work. In order to be a wolf of Odin, there has to be a sheep for you to eat. Otherwise, why would you identify with a predator? Why would you identify with that kind of a situation? Unless you're trying to identify to the carrion eater, which I seriously doubt in those instances. If they do, it's usually because of the hyper-aggressive side of battle and the battle imagery. But again, that is necessity, that is hunger, that is dependence upon a food source that is not guaranteed and pervasive. They are opportunistic feeders for a reason, because they don't know when they're going to get their next meal. They either have to hunt it or be lucky enough to find it dead. Why do you think they eat dead things? It is a necessity, not a dietary choice. Okay? So that's something that I don't think a lot of Brosatru, a lot of the I'm a Viking guys get, is that basically they're saying they need prey to exist in order for their identity to have any kind of value, because essentially that's the superficial nature of Brosatru and a lot of these other kind of surface level Asatru-light kind of things. I don't even go so far as to call them heathen-light, because there's not really any real heathenry in it. It's all pop culture and very superficial. And so they don't realize that they're at that point where they have to identify themselves by what they're not. And so they need a prey. They need big book religions. They need Judeo-Christians. They need things like this to set themselves aside from. Otherwise, their identity means nothing. They're not self-sufficient. They're so focused on being predator and not prey that they're not seeing that the predatory creature that they're trying to identify with is so much more nuanced. And there's so much more to the wolf than just what we see in the caricaturized iconography that we have used. And so I'm rambling, I know, but it's a deep conversation and one that went on for a little bit, but I was kind of late to it because I was having to work the shutdown yesterday. But the gist of what I'm getting at in all of this is that it's interesting to me to look at an area of symbolism within heathenry that has been used for ages, but misused in most cases because people don't see the core element. It's kind of like missing the fact that the core element of frith is obligation. That's that kind of thing of seeing that the core base element of the wolf is that need fire of hunger, because that will lead a wolf to do unpredictable things. Like the whole idea within the lore and the sagas, especially when an outcast who behaves like a wolf betrays someone, and they're like, he's wolf-like in his actions and whatnot. It's usually out of some kind of necessity At least it would be. A wolf that would turn on someone would be a wolf that is in deep need and will turn against outer circle long before it turns against inner circle, that kind of thing. So that's something that, I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about. So that's the dealing with wolf, the dealing with the outsider versus the insider, the dealing of desperation, of hunger, the role of breaking down, like violently breaking down order into chaos. These imageries are throughout the lore and throughout the sagas, and are very important, I think, in understanding some of these sagas and what they mean. Because while we may have a more nuanced approach to the iconography of wolves in modern day, they did not necessarily back in the day, at least not those that wrote this stuff down. And so if you want to understand a situation, when the sagas refer to someone as a wolf, they're not saying that he's cool and wolf-like in his approach. They're saying that he's an outsider, that he can't be trusted, and that he's likely to turn on someone and devour them because he is the big bad wolf. And that's a whole different thing, getting into, fear of the outside, the big bad, fear of betrayal, things like that. There's a lot of psychological elements that we can get into here that would make for like an hour-long video. And so we're not going to get into that. But this is kind of where we're going with it all. But in gist, that's kind of what I wanted to cover today. I do apologize for being more rambly than usual. I am very tired at the moment, and I really wanted to get this out there because I've done a good job about staying on schedule, and I had an interesting conversation that I wanted to turn into something for you guys because I thought you might enjoy it. But I am a little scatterbrained because I have had a long couple of weeks, and I still have a long one coming up. So bear with me, guys. I'll get back on track eventually. Thank you all. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your interactions with the videos. I hope you continue to enjoy them. Hail to you all. Thank you. And may your hearth fires burn bright. Mosquitoes. Friggin' mosquitoes. It is the end of September. It's almost October. We're like 3 days from October. And there's a literal swarm of mosquitoes. The nasty kind, too, flying around my head. I've got deep woods off all over me. It's ridiculous. They'll go away here in a minute once I spark the cigar up a little bit. But anyway. Oof da, people. Oof da. I am tired. I don't even know which way is up at the moment. It's been a while since I've been this tired. I think the last time I was this tired was probably during that stint where I had to work like 91 days straight. Before that would have been after the tornado. For reals. So, it's a thing. Anyway, I'm trying to get my camera set up here where it's a nice shot, but the angle's still okay and I can sit comfortably. We'll see. Oof, da. So, update on the whole job thing. I still don't have everything lined out yet. There's a lot of things that I'm in talks for. It's way up in the air. There's like 24 mosquitoes around me at the moment, all just buzzing around going, he's got that stuff on. Ugh. So anyway, I don't have a whole lot of, the sun's going to move here in a minute too. Don't have a whole lot of updates when it comes to the work situation other than the fact that we are deep in shutdown. We've got, I think I've got until Wednesday to get everything out of there and shut down and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I've got a job till Wednesday anyway. Yay. It's ridiculous. I ain't even gonna lie. We were cleaning out the shop yesterday, which was a Saturday. Trying to get everything out of there, and then we've got all kinds of other stuff on the site we have to clean out. When you got, that place was in business for 34 years. 34 or 36. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, I think it was 34 years it was in business, and then I was with them for 15 years, and I was administrator of the shelter for 10 years. So when you've got that much life in a place, it's ridiculous. There's a bloody mosquito flying in front of the camera. Go away. I swear. Mosquitoes. So anyway, when you amass that much stuff and that much history in a place, it takes forever to pack it out, to button it up and get everything where you need it to be long term. So it's a thing, and it's going to be a thing for a little while. Because even after we get everything done, my part of it ends on Wednesday. But the last two people that are still with the company will end up closing out the corporation and everything, and that'll take another couple of months to get all the paperwork and filings and stuff done. It's pretty ridiculous. I'm not even gonna lie. So, but yeah, it's crazy, and it's a weird time, because this place means a lot to me. So, anyway, today's smoke is the Punch Diablo. This is the big F-off one. It's a box press Gordo. I forget exactly what I think Diablo may actually be the size as opposed to the particular name for it, but it's Punch. You'll recognize it by a black and red label. Wind just shifted heavily. That was weird. And it's a pleasant smoke. It's bold. It's meaty. It's got a good draw. It's got a good flavor to it and everything. I really, really like it. It's again on the earthy and leathery coffee kind of side. You'll see a similar thread with what I like to smoke. This one is definitely on the full body side of things. It can have some construction issues periodically. It just depends on which one you get and how well it's done. The smaller ring gauge sizes do not have as many of the issues construction-wise that a Gordo will have, just simply because the larger ring size throws off the proportion of the birds are squawking. Throws off the proportion of filler to wrapper. The filler expands sometimes. The wrapper has a hard time keeping up. More susceptible to humidity. Things like that. It's a thing. Anyway. Alright. So, let's get this sucker lit and let's get started, because this is already like 5 minutes. Match isn't wanting to work. I may have to edit some of this. I never edit these. Getting there. All right. Sorry about that. That was like a solid minute of lighting a cigar. That's the quality TV that you guys pay to see. Oh, wait, you don't pay for this, so never mind. Anyway, if I don't seem my normal chipper and eloquent self, that is simply because I'm dead dog tired. So, let us try once again. With feeling. Ready, and we're live in 3, 2, 1. Hold on. All right. Now we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Hey. No, stop. Bad intro. Okay. 2, 1. Let's jam. Pause. Mmm. Such a good smoke. I do so love it. Alright, we're back in. Yes, I literally just took a pause so that I could just smoke the cigar. 3, 2, 1, let's jam. So here's a little follow up on the whole cigar, because I know some of you guys actually like the whole cigar thing. So again, this is that Punch Diablo, and I haven't had to do too many corrective burns to it. It's actually burning pretty well, maintains pretty strong, and this is for a Gordo that's pretty impressive because Gordos tend to have some significant issues with splitting and whatnot. This is one of the ones that I found that tends to be a little bit more durable, holds up better, and is just it's a better Gordo than most other Gordos. So I really like that. Plus I like the whole box pressed effect to it. I also like the obsidian in the Gordo because I feel like that 60 ring gauge is just it's a beast of a cigar, and sometimes I want that pure smoke volume and just the big beefy, you know, badass cigar. So anyway, flavor's maintaining good. I mean, I've smoked enough of these that I know they do all the way down to the nub. So builds in intensity as it goes along as you draw the oils back. And but I just wanted to kind of demonstrate, like I did last time. There's a little inconsistency there, but as you draw, a lot of that will fix just as the cherry pulls back. So, but I may do a little bit of a spruce up there as I knock the ash off this. But anyway, so there you go. That's a little bit of an update here at the tail end, provided I remember to stick this on the end. And yeah, so yeah, I moved from my filming side up here to edit and do other things. So thought I'd give you a little update. So hail to y'all. Thank you.